Alright, the Lord has been taking me on a journey, and I am going to share with you that journey that the Lord has been taking me through. And it seemed to be surrounded around the birth of Christ. Kind of seemed to be the theme that God was going with. When I say any of this, I say this, that it's God that's the one doing the work. I'm just kind of like, okay, God, where are we going with this? And so, this is Healing Waters of Bethesda, and my name is Michael. And it started back, I don't know exactly when. But there is just some, I think, insecurities that was actually kind of boiling up there a little bit, maybe. I wasn't quite sure the whole detail about it, but it's kind of like I received a warning dream, if you will, and just similar to the wise men, I get to say. And Matthew 2:12, and being warned of God in a dream, that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. And God was kind of like telling me, in a sense, not to go back to that insecurity. And so I think there was some insecurity that hadn't been fully dealt with, but he was saying don't go back to where you were, in a sense, with all this. So I say that to say what? Well, then the Lord started leading me to another verse also. And I didn't fully get this at first, but it makes sense to me now that I've been thinking about it, why he did give me this passage. And he says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and finding none. He saith, I will return unto my house whence I came out. And it doesn't say that it's the believer or not believer. All right, I'm just putting that out there. And when he cometh, he find it swept and garnished. Then goes he and takes to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. And when they enter in and dwell there, the last state of the man is worse than the first. All right. First off, what's this guy? Okay, so after this healing has taken place, the demon that's left the man wants to basically come back with 7 other wicked spirits and try to take back what was his. All right? But continuing on here, and this is the key of it all. And it came to pass, as he spoke these things, a certain woman of the company lifted up her voice and said unto him, Blessed is the womb that bare thee, and the pappes which thou sucked. But he said, Yea, rather, blessed are they which hear the word of God and keep it. And so sometimes, even when, I believe a lot of times we receive our healing and we receive stuff from the Lord, but what ends up happening is the devil comes back with 7 others. So it says he takes with him 7 other spirits. So technically it's 8, all right? So it's him plus 7 other ones that are more wicked than him. So basically the house has been garnished, but now you have this onslaught. And so a lot of times Christians get this idea of, well, I'm not healed because I'm feeling such a pushback in that area. Well, technically you're feeling that pushback because you were healed. And he said, even Jesus says, it's like, blessed are they that keep the word. You know, keep what you have. Don't let the enemy steal it from you, what God has healed. All right? So anyways, continuing on with the story, and that was some stuff that the Lord was kind of teaching me on through this whole process. So I was feeling that insecurity. I know the Lord had healed me of it, and there may have been some deeper stuff to it, I know. But I mentioned something to the person, and it was like that, and it still bugged me. So I went to the Lord, and he had me go walk around the mall, basically, to kind of clear my thoughts and kind of get right, I guess you'd say, find out what was the problem. What was the issue here? Of course, it was in me. It wasn't really with her. So what the Lord was kind of dealing with was the deeper level. Like, you can pull up the roots, but sometimes the roots didn't always pull up. Like, you can pull up the weed, but sometimes there's like the smaller roots that are sometimes down there. They have to get pulled up. So, me and her were chatting online, and it was dealt with. Like, okay, I just kind of say sorry. And then she was asking me, like, to help her interpret a part of her dream. Like, she had most of it already interpreted, and she knows I interpret my dreams and all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'm basically, the Lord's just finished dealing with healing me in that area, and I'm just going straight into helping her with the person that I just had something that was bugging me about. So I was like, okay, that was kind of interesting, I thought. So, and I'm not even sure if this was, I haven't really heard back from her, what the Lord was kind of showing me in that part, but the Lord was kind of showing me something about authority and who you give your authority to. All right? Some people like to give their authority to men, but ultimately you gotta give your authority to God himself. All right? So Psalms 2, I'm just going to read this right here, Psalms 2:12. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. All right? And so, what is this about this authority? All right? Well, what the Lord was really kind of showing me also was about the verse where it says, don't go back. All right? And so you have the idea here in Matthew 2:12 where you're telling the wise men, don't go back to Herod. He's, in a sense, don't give your authority to Herod on this matter. You go back to your country. And the same thing applied with 11:12 with the unclean spirit trying to find in the house. Basically, that was, in a sense, whose authority are you giving yourself to? The demons wanted their authority in that house back. All right? And this is kind of like the Lord was dealing with me with. It's like, don't give your authority back to the demons, in a sense, once you've been healed. Yeah. So, anyways, after I finished typing it all up and sending it, I'm like, I am just completely not drained, but empty. Like, I felt spiritually completely empty in my stomach. Like, I need to get filled up with Jesus. So, because I had spent like a good portion of time just praying that at work and all that stuff, and Lord, give me dreams and all that stuff. I was like, basically I was empty. So I had to be filled up with the Lord. All right, after emptying myself out, because basically I emptied out. The Lord helped me deal with emptying out the negative stuff or the bad stuff, and what good stuff was there, I basically poured out also, in a sense. So I'm just going to the Lord, and I get into this vision. And I think it's a woman or whatever, but it's in this diner. And in this diner, there's like 2 things technically on the menu that I could order. One was beef. All right, well, the meat of the word of God is like, yeah, most people is like, yes, I want the meat, I want the beef kind of deal, all right? the big hefty stuff, right? Like, cool. And then there was something else there that was like a meat and veggies kind of deal, and I felt like that was not going to fill me up as much either. And even the beef was like, no, that's just not going to fill me up, you know? I want, and basically I told her, I want the meat of the Lord. I said that. The meat of the Lord. And it's like the very best, if you will. I want to be filled with that. And all she said is like, okay, give me a minute. Just give me a bit here, or a minute two, or whatever. And that was the end of the vision. And I know when I've heard it before, when just wait, you wait, because something is actually coming. And it was just maybe a minute or so later, and it literally felt like something just hit my stomach, and I felt full, in a sense. Like, my stomach almost felt like it had eaten a bit. Like, my stomach felt full. Not like painful full, but it was that, like, I had something in me, you know? I got filled up, I guess you'd say. So then it switched to, like, as a woman on a bench with these white gloves all up her arm, and, like, whiteness, like, I basically from her elbows down, I guess you'd say I could see, just waiting on the bench, twiddling the thumbs. I'm like, okay, so wait. And then what ends up happening is I get this other vision of basically taking my old skin, kind of like a snake, if you will, but just peeling that old skin off, revealing the new skin underneath. And in that vision, it says new wine skin. And the skin that was underneath was like a bronze goldish tan to it. Is like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So I was like, that was the experience there. Then I also had another snippet of Jerusalem. It's not Jerusalem. Of me in the mall, basically a booth, shaking with a sign that says Kokomo, and I was shaking Kokomo. And from that, it reminded me of Matthew 2:3, where Herod the king had heard these things, and he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. You know, Jerusalem was shaken. And God was kind of like relating that aspect of the birth of Christ with that. And I'm like, wow. And then I end up, as I'm about ready to, I guess you wrap up everything you say, you know, I end up saying, it's like, I know what I'm going to do today. And, well, that wasn't actually what I was going to be doing, but needless to say, I said, I know what I'm going to do today. And then I just had this vision, or this thing pop in my head of Pinky and the Brain, and Brain just saying, it's like, I know what I'm going to do today. And usually it follows up like something up to the fact of taking over the world, you know, in a sense, taking over the world for Christ. All right, so that's kind of interesting, I thought. And I just kind of laughed because there's, mostly because I know what God has kind of spoken and all that stuff to me about other stuff. So it just kind of made me laugh at that when he did that. So then he ends up taking me, like, I was like, okay, I feel like I need to get something to eat. And then I get to rallies, and I kept on hearing the phrase rally point. Now, I'm not saying I fully understand, but there's a rally point around this, I guess, or whatever. I'm not 100% sure, but just rally point, okay? And he had me order 2 meals. Like, I had a discount coupon for it, and I'm like, 2 meals. All right, I'm not going to be able to finish this. I went to the park. I was not able to finish. I finished the 2 meals. They were small meals, but except for the 1 burger. The 1 burger I was not able to finish. So I ended up eating that like later that night. But anyways, so as I'm going about just walking around the park, I kind of sense like the Lord saying to me, go sit there and I will speak to you. I'm like, okay, sure. And it's basically, this is the one verse that is coming to my mind, because he literally had me sit by the river itself. And it's like Psalms 1:3, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season, and his leaf shall not wither, whatsoever he does shall prosper. And I'm just sitting there, and I really hadn't thought of that verse per se yet. But I'm like, Lord, what is this with this new wineskin? I'm just like, kind of like, I guess everything was just kind of a little overwhelming on that aspect. And I'm like, and then I literally started feeling my butt. And on my butt, there's actually a rip in my pants. I'm like, oh. Okay, Lord, that's what you're doing. You're showing me stuff here. Gotcha. So, as I was sitting by the river, basically, the river of life, if you want to put it that way, my pants ripped because that was the analogy God was showing me. And let's just read Mark 2 through chapter 2, verses 21 through 22. And no man also seweth a new piece or a piece of new cloth on an old garment. And that's what God was referring to. Else a new piece that was filled it up taketh away from the old, and the rent is made worse. And then continuing on, and no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine does burst the bottles, and the wine is spilled, and the bottles will be marred. But the new wine must be put into new bottles. So I was basically receiving some new stuff, I guess. And so whatever I was receiving, because I know I had that, my belly kind of felt like a fullness in a sense. And, you know, when your stomach, it expands, but let's face it, depending on what you're eating and how much you're eating, the new stuff needs to be put into new bottles. And that was what God was showing me. So I'm like, okay, so I end up going. Well, thankfully, the Lord kind of had me wear a certain shirt that day that was very long to begin with. Thankfully, I listened to the Lord on that aspect, and it covered up my butt, so no one actually knew or was able to see the rip that was there as I was walking around in the middle of the park. All right, yes, that's embarrassing, but not really embarrassing because the Lord has his ways, so nobody actually knew because I had a longer shirt on. So that was a blessing. So after that, I went to my job because I had a gift card there for Walmart for driving safely. And so I took that to get some new pants. So as I'm going there, it's like, I need something more durable, because these pants that I had gotten were of this year. Like, I got them this year, and these pants ripped on me. I understand it was the Lord was still showing me something, but it's like, I need something better. And I end up like, I want these carpenter pants. And as I'm starting to pick out these carpenter pants to buy them and check them out, see what size I actually want, I like hit with the fact that Jesus was the carpenter. I'm like, oh, Lord, okay, that's what you're doing here. Okay. I got you, Lord, I got you. So he was basically having me, Jesus was a carpenter. He was having me a new garment, if you will, giving me a new garment and a new carpenter pants. And I bought 2 new pair of pants. So there was that 2 again. And so I'm like, okay. And then the last thing I would say was something that happened today. And the Lord was taking me through this process, I guess. Like, I didn't know fully when this one church was, and I started understanding what God was kind of speaking about this. And I do have to back up there. Do I? Okay. I'll continue on here because I forgot one aspect that I forgot to mention, but I'm going to mention that at the very end of all this. So, anyways, what happened is I didn't know when this church was, and the name of the church was what was the exact name of the church? Oh Lord. City of Refuge was part of the name of the church. And I'm like, when I was trying to figure out where the Lord wanted me to go, and I was like, oh, I get it. Because there was a dream that I had previously, all the way back at the kind of like the beginning of this, where it's talking about Joseph and this woman's like, there's all these white scenes on this, and at the very beginning it's talking about how Joseph had to go flee into Egypt. You know, that was his city of refuge, was Egypt. And here God was having me go to a city of refuge in a sense. So I'm like tying that all back together, like, hey, God's doing something. This is that dream about going to the city of refuge was when God was dealing with me with the whole thing that was bugging me about that one person. And so I'm like, God was just tying like the beginning from the end, tying those loose ends together, you know? And the one thing that I forgot to mention also, that morning when I was getting filled with Christ was, one of the aspects was a vision that I had of myself, all right? But as a woman, approaching Christ himself, like there's a few steps up and he was there, and I approached like as a woman, and I told him, whatever you say, I will do. And I just kind of came out of that. And the one thing I realized is before, if I had said that, like, I already automatically thought, I was like, well, I'm already trying to do that already. But me saying that before, I would kind of be like afraid, you know? And I realized that insecurity that I have with the opposite sex, which is the fear of losing somebody, all right? I guess in a sense, like that fear of losing Christ, you know? But with that insecurity gone, it just gave me that ability to allow myself to lay down my crown before Christ more willingly to do so, versus that hesitation and that fear to do so because of that insecurity that I had. And so what God was also doing through all this whole process of stuff that he was doing was he was taking away the insecurity, and once he's dealt with that, it was kind of like the ability to lay down one's life for Christ without the fear of losing. And that's just kind of interesting. And one other aspect of it all, too, is kind of interesting. Because that previous church I had gone to, which was, the City of Refuge Church, that was part of its name. They were meeting at a very later time, and so, like, I didn't know if that church was meeting or what, so I actually went to another church that was called Straight. And in the process of going there, I went there, and I'm like, I was in the balcony kind of talking to the pastor, and the next thing I know is, like, I just feel like God's like, no, leave. And I'm like, I left. And I went back to the other church because this was around 11 o'clock. And then the other church hadn't even started yet, there was nobody there. And so I went back there, and just as I get back there, I see that there's a man that's entering the building. I'm like, oh, okay. And I talked to the man, and he's like, no, it starts at 1, actually, not 11, and it was 11 o'clock. I'm like, okay, I'll just go back home. And so sometimes God takes us on paths that we want them to actually be straightforward. But if you think about it, Jesus had to go on his detours of life. You know, he had to go to his city of refuge and his place. And so sometimes when God's dealing with us in life and everything, our paths don't always look like straightforward. You know, they're not always straightforward. There's a lot of bends and curves that God takes us through. And a lot of times those will bring healing into our lives that we would not have otherwise received and that we needed. And if we had actually, I know it talks about, you know, going on the straight and narrow path, but in life, I've learned that God, even though we're supposed to walk that narrow path, but God also has a way of taking us on all these detours, if you want to put it this way. He takes us on all the side quests. So once we get to the main boss, we're super uber powerful. Okay? So a lot of times God won't take us straight to the main thing that he has for us. He'll take us on those side tracks and to those cities of refuge and take us on this journey that we can't fully understand sometimes. And I don't even fully understand the process of all this that God was showing me, but I know I received it on the 9th month, on the 9/10/2022. And, you know, the Lord will take you on a journey. It's his way of doing stuff, you know. We're his project. We're just kind of there for the ride. All right, well, God bless you all, and I hope this has been a blessing to those that have listened to this. In Jesus' name, amen. Bye for now. Love you all.